Hello and welcome back, or if it's your first time joining me, welcome to the channel. I call it the Jungle Nook. The room we're in right now is my largest and main growing room. I actually refer to this room as the Nook. This video is going to focus around moving our indoor house plants outside for the summer. And I'm going to talk about some of the differences in the care that they're going to require being outside as opposed to indoors. And I'm also going to do a demonstration where I show how to condition your plants to prevent sunburn. Even your plants that do like or require full sun, if they've been indoors and then you move them outside, even your full sun plants will need to be conditioned to prevent sunburn. And I'll show how to do that. It usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks to do it properly. I'll show how to do that. But now talking about the light outside, sunlight, it's important to understand that even in a shady spot outside, the sun's going to be more intense outdoors in the shade as it will be indoors in your brightest spot. The brightest spot in your house, the light will be less intense as opposed to the shadiest spot outside. And that's because light scatters. Think of a mirror. Light reflects off of a mirror. Well, light actually reflects off of all surfaces. But when it reflects or it scatters, it loses its intensity. Even directly in front of a window that has sunlight coming through it, a clean window, that glass, when the light goes past that glass, through the glass, it loses a lot of its intensity. So it's really important to condition your plants for that amount of intensity outdoors. But that's one of the big benefits of having your plants outside is that greater or better quality light. Because of that light that it's going to receive outside, even in the shade, your plant's going to engage in photosynthesis at a much more efficient and accelerated rate than they will within your home. And because of that, they're going to require a lot more water and nutrients, the two main things that the plant is consuming when engaging in photosynthesis. Remember, a plant does not always engage in photosynthesis when it's in light, but it can only engage in photosynthesis while it's in light. And what I mean by that is if a plant does not have an adequate amount of water and nutrients, even though it's in light, it's not able to engage in photosynthesis. When you have your plants outside for the summer, you should check them daily to see if they require water. At the hottest part of the summer, for a lot of us, you may have to water your plants twice a day because they are drying out due to the plant consuming so much water. But also they're outside and there's a lot more evaporation occurring. Now, cacti, most succulents, most orchids, things like that, you do want the soil to become bone dry in between waterings. But that's not the case for our tropical houseplants. We're still told, let the soil dry out in between waterings for our tropical varieties, but they don't mean bone dry. Think of a sponge, submerge it in the water. When you take it out, wring it out the best you can. You can't get no more water out of it, but the sponge is still moist. When your soil is at that level, it's when the plant requires you to add more water. Because although the soil is moist enough to prevent the roots from drying out, and there's plenty of aeration for good root health, there's not enough moisture within the soil for the plant to be able to absorb it. And if the plant cannot absorb the water, if there's not enough moisture, it's not going to engage in photosynthesis, but it's also the water that's absorbing the nutrients. The roots are absorbing nutrient-rich water, which leads me into fertilization. I've always said that with your indoor house plants, you want to use, actually for any plant, indoors or outdoors, you want to use an all-purpose fertilizer because they have all of the nutrients, all the different types of nutrients that a plant requires. And nearly all plants require the exact same nutrients and use them in the same way. But, you know, in our indoor plants, I recommend using a all-purpose fertilizer that has its primary nutrients, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, at a 3:1:2 ratio. What I mean by that is the second number, the phosphorus, whatever it is, you want the first number, the nitrogen, to be 3 times as much. And the last number, the potassium, to be somewhere in between those two. That's a 3:1:2 ratio. It's real important for our indoor plants. Also, our indoor plants, we're probably fertilizing them at full strength according to the directions of our fertilizer once a month. And I'm referring to a water-soluble liquid fertilizer. Those are the best for our potted plants because those nutrients are immediately available for the plant. But, you know, our indoor plants that we're fertilizing at full strength once a month, outdoors, because they're engaging in photosynthesis at such an accelerated rate, we're going to want to give them that same fertilizer at half strength every week. And to go one step farther, substitute one of those fertilizations each month with an actual balanced fertilizer. I know I'm always saying don't use balanced fertilizers on our houseplants, but they're outdoors in conditions that are much more closely mimicking their natural environment due to the light. And they're going to be engaging in photosynthesis at an accelerated rate. And you're going to see a lot more foliage, a lot more growth. But what you're not maybe aware of is all the additional growth happening to the root structure within the pot. And that root structure is going to want a little bit more, or it's going to need more phosphorus. So substitute one of your weekly waterings, which all of them are at half strength, substitute one of them each month with an actual balanced fertilizer, a 10-10-10 or a 20-20-20. Nearly all plants use the exact same nutrients and in the exact same way. And they will store excess nutrients and use them when needed. So by giving it a balanced fertilizer, you're giving it all the extra phosphorus and potassium that it needs when it actually needs it. It'll already have it available. But instead of doing that, using a balanced fertilizer once a month in substitution of the 3:1:2 ratio, you could just sprinkle some bone meal when you move your plants outside in the pot. And that will give them the extra phosphorus that the roots will require as well. Pests can be a problem outside. There's a lot of pests outside. But your plant's outside in much better conditions than what it would be in your home due to all the extra light. And it's probably healthier outside, which will put it in a better position to produce natural compounds to help fight off pests when they begin to feed on your plant. The plant will also be releasing pheromones, which is basically like a scent. And insects will pick up on that scent, predator insects. And those pheromones will be telling those predator insects there's a particular type of food on it, and they will follow that pheromone back to the plant and help to take care of the problem. But it is a good idea to still, periodically wipe off or spray your plant down with some water to knock insects off. Still inspect your plant. Myself personally, now I'll show this too when we move out onto the porch, I will be wiping all my plants down with neem oil, but I'll also In a few of my plants that I move outside, I will be putting an insecticide into the soil. It's a type of insecticide, I'll show it, that gets absorbed into the plant. Neem oil also gets absorbed into the plant. But it's an insecticide that will get absorbed into the plant to help prevent, insects from feeding on the plant. Yeah, they might still come and start to feed on it a little bit, but they're gonna die. They're not gonna be laying their eggs, and you won't have an outbreak on your plant. So a little bit of extra precaution, with pests. Inspect your plant a little more frequently, wipe them down, or if they're outside, you could use the hose, lightly spray them down, move them into the rain when it's raining. Rain actually has nitrogen in it, one of the primary building blocks, nutrient-wise for plants. There is actually a little bit of nitrogen, a real good quality nitrogen right within rainwater. Now, another pest that might be overlooked is things like squirrels and chipmunks and things like that. I used to have a problem specifically with the squirrels, either looking for stuff in my pots or burying nuts and things in my pots. I just get a deer and rabbit repellent, the stuff that you sprinkle around your plants outside or spray in your plants to stop deer and rabbits from eating them. You can spray that into the little bit on the soil, or if it's the powder, sprinkle a little bit of it on there. Usually it's just like concentrated, dehydrated garlic for the powders, and the liquids is usually like, well, actually it's like blood. It actually is blood. And also will have like spices and garlic in it. They smell all that stuff. They smell the blood. You don't see the blood. It's not really blood, but I mean, it's made from blood. But they smell it and they know to stay away from it. There might be a predator or something there. Or they smell that garlic and it messes with their nose, and they don't like the smell, and they leave your pots alone. If you don't want your plants to grow as fast, you just want to move them outside, let them enjoy being outside, get healthier, a little bit fuller, but you don't really want a big explosion of growth. You can get a massive explosion of growth. They will start to flourish outside if you're watering and fertilizing them the way I said. But if you don't want that, still give them all the water that they require, but then just do a half-strength fertilizer twice a month. They won't have the nutrients that they require to grow as quick and large. I understand space is limited. I'm running into that problem here, but that's a way to control the growth of the plant as well. A little, don't starve the plant, but, scale back a little on the fertilizer. Just give them the normal amount that you would give them every month, but you're dividing it up half strength for two different, like every other week. And maybe put a little bone meal in there in the spring too. So I'm not using a fertilizer that is strictly for indoor plants that's telling you to fertilize once a month. If I was, like I said earlier, because my plants are going to be outside with a lot more light, I would be giving them their fertilizer at half strength. I'd be mixing it up at half strength according to the directions, but giving it that half strength solution every week. Here, what I'm using is just an all-purpose plant food with a 3-1-2 ratio with the primary nutrients, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But right here, this is telling you to fertilize with this product every 1 to 2 weeks. You should be fertilizing with this. But if you look, they do have some extra directions right here. It's telling you every 1 to 2 weeks to give your indoor plants to add this much fertilizer to the amount of water that it's recommending. This is only a half of a teaspoon. You can do this every 1 to 2 weeks indoors. This is what they're recommending for even your potted plants outside, every 1 to 2 weeks. Now it's 1.5 tablespoons. I still think it is much better to give a diluted amount of fertilizer and fertilize weekly as opposed to monthly for your indoor and outdoor plants. But your outdoor plants, if you're using strictly a indoor fertilizer, do it at half strength weekly. But here, this Miracle Grow product is already provided me with a measuring device for indoor and outdoor, and you see the difference. I hope you see the difference. It's quite a big difference. Just because I'm sure that when you're hearing me say to fertilize, you know, if your fertilizer says once a month, and I'm telling you to do it at half strength, but do it 4 times a month, that just seems like, wow, you're gonna burn your plants. You're gonna get fertilizer burn. The plants outside are going to require so much more nutrients with the available light. They're also gonna require a lot more water. Now, I wanna show you guys the proper way to flush your soil as well, seeing that I am recommending to fertilize your plants heavier than what you might be used to being recommended to you. Really, as far as a houseplant fertilizer for indoor plants, I'm just telling you to give them twice as much fertilizer, but to divide that up 4 times, you know, once a week. So every week they're getting some fertilizer. You're actually doubling the amount they're getting for the month, but you're giving it to them at a reduced strength each week. Now, there's 3 different reasons that I think of when I am referring to a soil flushing. 3 different reasons why to perform a soil flushing. One is to remove excess nutrients that could be building up, especially now that we're fertilizing more than you might be accustomed to. Also, a water-soluble fertilizer that you have to add water to. It's like a dry powder, or even if it's just a concentrated a fertilizer that you're adding water to dilute down, there's a good chance there's salt in that. Especially if it's a dry powder. It's salt. It's not like table salt. It's a salt that's actually beneficial to the plants, but still there's too much, and that salt can build up and become toxic. So you're flushing excess nutrients, you're flushing excess salt, but you're also ensuring that you're thoroughly hydrating the plant and hydrating any dry pockets that may be in the pot. I've already watered this fern. And this fern is well hydrated. This is the proper time to do a soil flushing. You do not flush dry soil. It has to already be moist so that there is water within the pot that's absorbing that nutrients. And then you give it, after that water has had a chance to absorb the nutrients out of the soil, that's when you come back, give it a little more. Then you just keep coming back, giving it a little bit more. Let's see. See, usually I can give this plant a lot more water before it runs out, but it was already well hydrated. It's 95 degrees the last couple days. It's been 95 degrees Fahrenheit here. I've been watering my plants in the morning and the evening. The soil was already moist. I added some more water, and now it's flushing it out. It's flushing out the excess nutrients that may be in this pot. And you can just continue using your basic, whatever you're using, your basic all-purpose fertilizer that has that 3-1-2 ratio that I was talking about, and just add some bone meal in there for the spring. I actually have some 20-20-20 that I occasionally use in outdoor gardens in the ground. So I will be using a very diluted solution of that to provide the extra phosphorus and a little extra potassium once a month. I'm just letting all that water drain out. and it's starting to slow down. I'm going to give it a little bit more. I want to make sure that I am flushing any excess nutrients or salt out of this pot. I'm doing this to all my plants out here to ensure that there's not already a buildup of salt or nutrients before I start increasing the fertilization. I would also recommend that when you first move your plants outside and while you are conditioning them to the new availability of this better light, more intense light, don't start to increase the fertilization for probably the first month after they've been outside. Let them get accustomed to the new conditions and actually to begin to put out all that, new growth. Wait for that growth spurt to actually get ready to begin or already begin before you start adding the extra nutrients. The plant's already probably has some reserves anyway because we came into spring over winter. It was, I think you know what I'm saying. Now I'm going to show you how to condition the plants, the full sun plants, as well as the ones that are shady. See, I'm just giving it more and more water, but it was already thoroughly hydrated. I'm just making sure I'm giving it a good flush. Now, I have some shady plants out here right now. Plants, when I'm saying shady plants, I'm referring to plants that like, bright indirect light. For instance, these spider plants here, I got one right here, right up against the edge here. This actually gets a lot more light in its location as opposed to if I had it hanging where these three plants are, which is where this spider plant, that spider plant, and a couple of these ferns originally were for about a week. And then I moved them closer out to the edges where it's going to get even more light. See, all of them, that fern too got moved out farther out. And now I brought a new batch out and they are over there. And I'll probably move them closer to the edge of the roof as well, to the edge of the deck. And I'll bring out another batch and start them there. But my full sun plants, like all of these ones, now I have them under the porch and I have them under a skylight, but I did not clean my skylight yet because I have them directly under the skylight. So I have been conditioning them out here under the skylight. They're full sun. This isn't really, this would be sufficient for them, to survive and probably even put out additional growth compared to if they were left in the house in the conditions I had them in. As far as pests are concerned for the insects, this is a systemic houseplant insect control. This is something that you sprinkle right into the soil. Like you literally, I know how much to use. You'd have to read the directions when you're using it. I've used it so much in the past. I know how much to give it. And all you really do is you just sprinkle a little bit right into the soil and then you water it. And the plant will absorb some of this right into the tissue, and you will have protection against a whole variety of insects while they're outside. But literally I just sprinkled a little bit of this as directed right into the soil, and then I will water it. And for the rabbits or squirrels or whatever might be getting into your pots and digging them up, this is just, it's deer and rabbit repellent. It works against squirrels and chipmunks and all sorts of other things as well. Normally you spray this on the foliage to prevent stuff from eating the foliage, but if that's not the problem and they're just digging into your pots, disturbing your roots, I just spray a little bit of it right into the soil, and that will keep them away. That will stop them from digging in there. That's all I do. I like to, if I have a real big infestation and I can move my plants outside, I'll put them in a shady spot and I will just spray the whole plant down real good. When they're inside, or I don't see a lot of pests or any pests on it, I still may want to clean the leaves, wipe them off, but I'll use the neem oil. I've shown this in a lot of videos. It's just neem oil. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to start down at the base of the leaf And I'm just going to wipe this whole leaf off, wiping off any potential insects, cleaning the leaf, and making it nice and shiny too. And I will go through and do this to every leaf. And this will have some protection right on the leaves, but this will get absorbed into the plant, providing protection not just for the foliage that you're seeing, but also providing protection inside of the pot, because this is not only an insecticide, it is a fungicide and a milicide, so it helps to prevent against things like root rot. Root rot is basically a fungus that's classified as a pathogen. It's a harmful fungus. And this will help to protect the roots from that, and also things like millipedes that might be living in the soil and other insects that are attacking the roots. Just like this product here that gets absorbed into the plant will be protecting it against insects all the way down into the roots, all the way into the, the stems, the leaf, all of the tissue of the plant. Now, as far as conditioning my plants have been out here for a while. It's actually been a few weeks since I made the first part of the video. I realize I'm rushing a little bit for the second part of this video, but I thought I was going to have this video out like 3 weeks ago, so I'm just trying to get it done. But now these full sun plants, and now it is later in the evening, this is usually in full sun right here, this spot right here. Let me make sure I got all this in the shot. Well, what I've been doing in the morning when I come out, I'll take these guys and I pull them all out right into the full sun. These are the plants that actually require direct sunlight. I pull these guys out into the full sun, and I'll just keep pulling them all out. I got a few more. There's some off camera too. I'll be pulling them out. They were only out here for about a minute the first day, and I did it one time. The next day, I pulled them out for about a minute, but I did it twice a day. And then I have been slowly each day increasing the time. These plants, all right, they have no sunburn on them. These plants are now coming out for about 5 minutes twice a day, maybe even 3 times a day now. Next week I'll be moving these out and just leaving them out here. But here's another tip. I have my roof's right here. The water comes right off when it rains and comes down. Make sure your pots are not directly under something like this where that water can come down and wash out the soil. That's what happened to this plant right here. Hope it's in the shot. And this pot actually fell over. Yeah, it happened to a bunch of my pots. And I thought I had them far enough away from the roof, but we had a really heavy rain, and instead of the water just coming straight down, it was coming off on an angle. Gotta be careful. I know I kind of rushed at this last part, but like I said, it's been like almost going on 3 weeks and I haven't finished the video. I just want to get the video done for you. So I will be rearranging my plants out here pretty soon and getting the porch set up. I got more plants to come out. You know how I do the walkthroughs in the house. Either I'll do a walkthrough out here real quick with some music just to show you how they look outside, or maybe I'll come out and have a cup of coffee before work and we'll talk a little bit about plant care. I know I've been saying that forever too. That last update video that I did, well, it wasn't the last video, it was my last update video. I said, yeah, I took a break, I'm all ready to get back into it. I really am, I'm excited, I really want to be making videos. I forgot though, it's spring, 4th of July's coming, I'm a landscaper and gardener. I'm extremely busy up until the 4th of July. Everybody wants everything done before the 4th of July. I'm just burnt out when I come home from work, I'm exhausted. As soon as the 4th of July's done, I'll have more time. Keep promising stuff like that, but yeah, I totally forgot about the 4th of July. I didn't forget about it, but plus we're experiencing crazy warm weather here. It should not be 95 degrees with, 60-70% humidity. That's not normal for where I live neither. So that's really taking a toll too. But leave a comment. Leave a comment. I'm sure a lot of you are going to have comments about how I'm saying to give them, you know, extra fertilizer and, you know, and stuff. I'm going to get comments from people that don't agree with that. But I'm sure there are some of you who understand what I'm saying, and I would really appreciate if you have done anything like that, where you've, you know, increased the overall amount of fertilizing that you give your plants outdoors, but you also space it out more, what kind of results you got. Or maybe you know, I'm limited in the type of I have fertilizers that I use that work, that meet my needs. Maybe some of you guys have fertilizers that, you know, you can recommend, where they actually have directions on how you do water your plants indoors or outdoors that people can use to maybe make it a little more simpler. I try to explain things as simply as I can when I'm making videos. It's just difficult for me sometimes to get my point across and to actually make sense. I get it. I apologize.